You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
our fab fact is rather persuasive.
We're learning that even the best laid plans can go wrong in the Randomiser.
and Toby Hadoke materialises yet again.
You've got a bit of a frog in your throat there. Anyway, that's all coming up in Pod 154.
Of the Gerry Anderson podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Now, Richard, do you want to explain what on earth that noise is?
Why do I have to explain?
Well,
really?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you got a fur ball. Have you been licking yourself again?
It's a TARDIS. Of course it is. I'm talking to Toby Hadoke again for the second part of my interview.
It's your Vworp, isn't it?
Yes, it's my Vworp. He's a big Doctor Who fan, as we know.
Yeah, he certainly is. Oh, well, I'm looking forward to a bit more Toby Hadoke. Now, you're Richard James. I'm Jamie Anderson. Over there, freshly out the shower and bizarrely wrapped in 3 towels with a sort of turban-esque one for drying his hair, is Chris Dale. Chris, you need to go and sort yourself out because very soon it'll be time for your randomiser. But what else have we got coming up on the Gerry Anderson podcast other than the fan favourite randomiser, Richard James?
He's dripping water all over our lovely wooden parquet flooring as well.
On,
well, of course, we've got Fab Facts coming up in just a moment, of course. We've got the second part of my interview with Toby Hadoke, where he recollects his memories of watching Gerry Anderson as a child and actually gives us his thoughts and comments on Space Precinct 2, which
can't wait for that.
Will be of interest. Yeah, we've got some newsy news because there's always something new happening in the Gerry Anderson universe,
Correct.
as we know well by now. We've got Chris Dale's Amazing Randomiser coming up a little later on, and of course we've been hearing from our wonderful Podsterons. That's you listeners at home who've been emailing us podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. You've been tweeting us and hashtagging us Gerry Anderson Podcast. You've been writing on our Facebook group and mentioning us on YouTube, and I shall be reading out missives from all those various social media platforms as we go on.
Brilliant.
Hey.
YouTube missives can be quite interesting. Have you got any interesting ones there? Well, I can wait, don't worry.
Exactly, you'll just have to wait.
I'll find out later. Now, also in the news today, we have an exclusive 5-minute sample of Thunderbird's Terror from the Stars, the brand new audiobook, which is being released this week from Big Finish Productions. Now, I also have a slight bit of disappointing news, which I will deliver probably as part of a sandwich around that that sample. But don't worry, all is fine. All will be revealed. All is well. All is FAB, in fact. Now, while we wait for that FAB thing, I've got another FAB thing. In fact,
have you?
It's an FAB FACTS thing.
FAB. It's a Fab Fact!
Yeah!
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
So this FAB FACT, Richard, I have a BOOK. I'm going to flick through the PAGES. You're going to shout FAB, and I will STOP at that point and read out an FACT. Are you ready?
Hang on, I'm just catching up. YES.
Excellent. Here we go.
FAB!
Oh, no, I'm not sure whether I should have stopped on the F or the B there.
True.
So I stopped on the A.
Okay.
Well, this will be a nice one, I think.
Yeah.
Because this Fab Fact has to do with the much-loved and much-missed Shane Rimmer.
Lovely.
Now, as we all know, Shane was not only an incredible voice artist, he was also, as we've discussed before, a writer. And among his writing credits are several episodes of Captain Scarlet, Joe 90, and the glorious Secret Service. And most relevant to today's Fab Fact, The Protectors.
Right.
I think, as we may have discussed before, Shane wrote 2 episodes of the show, the first of which also guest starred Shane Rimmer himself.
Yeah, funny that.
The episode in question was called Zeke's Blues, in which Shane played Harry Rule's old pal, Zeke, as you might imagine, who got into some troubles with baddies, and things all go a bit wrong, as you might expect in The Protectors. But did you know that another very well-known actor had already been approached to play that role that eventually became Zeke.
Oh?
Well, Shane did, because he wrote the episode with that very person in mind.
Ah, did he?
Yes. Shane had first heard about the Protectors when he was guest starring on an episode of another popular ITC show, which had been written by Protectors script editor and regular Anderson contributor, the late Tony Barwick.
Ah.
One of the stars of the show had agreed to guest star on the Protectors, and Dad was wondering that since Shane was working with this actor on this other series, maybe he should be the one to write the script that would feature him as a guest star. The show in question was The Persuaders, and the actor was Tony Curtis.
Oh.
That's not
No,
quite
really?
the response I was expecting. Anyway,
Go on.
Shane played a baddie in Tony Barwick's Persuaders episode called Element of Risk, which, oddly enough, had quite a few Anderson elements in it. Richard James, would you like to hear them?
Yeah, oh, well, of course I would.
Here we go then. As well as Shane, there was also Protectors in Space 1999 star Peter Bowles,
I love Peter Bowles.
UFO guest star James Cosmo,
Oh, I love James Cosmo.
UFO Space 1999 and Space Precinct guest star Bob Sherman,
Hey?
and, don't say A, and regular Supermarination voice David Healy.
Ah.
So do you not remember Bob Sherman from Space Precinct?
Bob Sherman. What did he play? Do you know any idea?
We'll have to look him up in a minute.
Yeah.
There was also a character named Anderson, and the baddies were trying to get their hands on aircraft code-numbered Flight 104, which is the name of a Captain Scarlet episode, also written by Tony Barwick. You see,
Great.
it always
Yeah.
comes back to Anderson, whatever
of
we
course
do.
it does.
And
Yeah.
Tony always reuse things like the 10th of July and Flight
Yes.
and 104 and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, during production of Element of Risk, Shane spent a lot of time observing Tony Curtis, seeing how he moved and behaved and writing down observations between takes so that he could create a character for his Protector script that best suited Tony Curtis's style. Curtis eventually twigged something was going on and had to ask Shane just why exactly he was stalking him with a little notebook. But luckily, he completely accepted Shane's explanation. Very good.
Right.
Shane then got on with writing the script and tailored the story and its main guest character of Zeke to his experiences with Tony Curtis as much as possible. But, unfortunately, as is sometimes the case, Curtis ultimately had to pass on the Protectors episode because of other filming commitments in the States. Shane was called for an urgent meeting where he was told, the script is fine, everything is fine, we've just got one teeny tiny problem, no Curtis.
Oh.
But rather than delay production, it was suggested that Shane himself could take over the role. Although Shane protested at first, he soon saw it made sense since he was the one who had the most invested in the creation of that character. So it's not like he just wrote an episode and said, I'm going to be the guest star in it.
Yeah, which is what I would do.
Well, Shane would never do that. Even though Dad and Sylvia probably would have let him do that because
true.
He'd done voices for episodes of Supermarination shows and he'd also written, obviously, for Scarlet and Joe 90.
Yep.
But those were a little bit different to a live-action main guest starring role. But they clearly had enough faith in Shane that he could do it and do it well, which, of course, he did.
Of course he did.
So, if you go back and watch that episode of The Protectors, which obviously we recommend you do, and we do love The Protectors, then you may spot little glimpses of Tony Curtis in Shane's performance because he was trying to keep up the spirit of the original casting as best he could. It's interesting to imagine Tony Curtis doing that guest spot on The Protectors, though. It made sense to try and get him since he was already in the UK doing The Persuaders, but you have to wonder, Curtis himself, would he have got along with Robert Vaughn? Would they have clashed? Maybe they were already friends? We don't know. But presumably they must have crossed paths at some point on the Hollywood circuit, so who knows what that sort of partnership would have been like.
Yeah.
It's yet another what-if moment where history ultimately went in a slightly different way than planned.
Oh, how interesting. Yeah, you do wonder how many of these roles are written with actors in mind. Not many, I shouldn't think.
I mean, do you think the role of Officer Oren in Space Precinct was written with Richard James in mind?
Now that I doubt. Probably written with Tony Curtis in mind, to be honest. And if you look very carefully, you'll see something of Tony Curtis in my performance.
We hear it on the podcast every week.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, dear Shane Rimmer. I mean, he really is the epitome of the Anderson universe, isn't he? I mean, he had a finger in just about every pie, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Writing, voicing puppets, guest starring in live action shows. I mean, he did a little bit of everything. Yeah, and was a very important part of the universe and remains so despite his absence.
Yes, and wasn't he such a prominent guest on the convention circuit? Always so popular with people, I remember.
Oh, very
big cues for Shane Rimmer every time.
Yeah, well, just hearing him say your name. I mean, I've still got on my voicemail a message from Shane that I saved from years ago, just because it's cool having Scott Tracy leave you a voicemail.
Of course it is.
So, yeah. Anyway, I shall raise a toast to Shane. I'm only drinking a diet soda can thing here, but I'm still raising it to Shane. But that brings us rather nicely to the end of this week's
Shane's
Fact. Oh, well, that's great. You see, I did the character, you did the actor.
Yeah,
Zeke's Fact,
exactly.
Shane Fact.
Oh,
lovely.
Yeah, that's sweet. That's very nice. I always like to hear things about lovely Shane Rimmer. Now, Jamie, have you ever been likened to fish eggs?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, I only asked because Barbara Knowles got in touch, as did many other Podsterons in the last week, to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. Barbara says just a few lines to celebrate the caviar of the air, the Gerry Anderson podcast. With the silky smooth voice of Richard, the observations of the randomiser, and Jamie managing all his other responsibilities while still finding time to snowboard. It's amazing. And long may it continue. And that's from Barbara.
Ah, yes. Yes, my snowboarding and my country and western career are both going very well, thank you.
I'm amazed you find the time for this. It's incredible. Thanks for squeezing us in your very busy schedule. Now, Paul Hyde has been listening to BBC Radio 2. He says, "Hi, Jamie and Richard. Hope you're well. Last Sunday on the 2nd of May, the Potter's Arms had a shout-out on the Paul O'Grady show on Radio 2. It was to wish my wife Lydia well, but Paul called her Linda. Anyway, poor Lydia is used to that happening. Anyway, he mentioned so many of your dad's great programmes that it made my day, as I've been trying for weeks to get a shout-out. Anyway, I thought you might want to hear it." And that's from Paul Hyde. Yeah, well, have a listen to this. He does indeed mention a ton of Gerry Anderson shows.
Oh, let's hear that now.
Do you want a message?
Yes, please.
Rightio. And a big hello to Paul Hyde and his wife Linda, a.k.a. Lady P. And both of them are big fans of Thunderbirds. And they'd also like a mention for their pals who take part in Gerry Anderson-themed quizzes. I like Thunderbirds, so did you?
I loved all his stuff.
And me, Stingray. Stingray.
Joe 90.
Yeah, I used to like
UFO.
That. Yeah, I used to
Space
like that.
1999.
Four Feather Falls.
Don't remember that one.
I knew you'd say that. I fed you that line.
Captain Scarlet.
Yeah. Twizzle.
I really don't remember that one.
Well, I vaguely remember Twizzle. Vaguely. I can remember the theme tune now. I'm going to move on quickly.
Isn't that amazing? I love it. His earliest memory is of Twizzle. I mean, that's going back, isn't it? Great.
Yes, gosh, that barely ever gets a mention.
No.
Yeah,
no,
almost
quite.
as little as Torchy, thank goodness.
Tom Hodden says, "Would you be so kind as to thank Chris Dale and all who work on the Gerry Anderson official page for their excellent work? A while back, I suggested in the Podsterons group that an article on tangentially Anderson shows like TB 2086 might be of some little interest, and Chris has gone and proved me wrong by writing an article of huge interest and entertainment that raked up a whole slew of nostalgic memories from Saturday mornings long ago. It is, of course, far from the only interesting article in a site that is a very easy way to lose an afternoon. If you could surprise Chris and company by reminding them that they are pretty darned marvellous, I would be much obliged." And that's from Tom.
Ah, lovely.
Yeah,
well, thank you.
great?
Thank you, Chris Dale, and all who sail in her.
Yeah, quite right.
Much appreciated.
Yep. Indeed. Now, this is from Steve, who says, "Hi, chaps. Well, what a marathon we had at the Potter's Arms on the Facebook group on Saturday night. 3.5 hours of Thunderbirds questions, expertly hosted by the talented Willow and co-host Squiddy. There were 20 participants who were entertained with the following rounds. Squiddy's Gordon round, Steve's merch round, Doug's Thunderbirds guest vehicle round, Stephen's answer smash round, Alex's caption round, Tessa's TB episode round, Gordon edition, Jenny's Whose Line Was That round, Lauren's Spot the Difference round, and last but not least, Simpsons Clips cheeky emoji round, with interludes provided, of course, by Pun King Simon. Phew.
Oh, of course.
Steve goes on, regarding the 6 degrees of separation. Now, do you remember this, Jamie? You posed a 6 degrees of separation teaser. How are we to get from Thunderbird 2
yes.
to Post-it notes?
Yes.
Remember?
Yes,
well,
and I saw a few entries flood in. So.
Yeah, now you see, we need to talk about this because I spend a lot of time, as you know, a few months ago, creating a brand new item for the podcast called Plot of Peril.
Yes.
I mean, I put an awful lot into that.
I remember, yes.
And
you're sweating away.
We used to get like 1 entry, 2 tops. It was usually Simon Allen, Simpsons Clips, Tom Hodden. That's about it.
Yeah.
But you seem to have struck gold with this one.
Yes.
So, first of all, Steve says, right, Post-it note, made by 3M, who are based in Binfield on Kane Road, which is included in the title of the film Saving Sarah Kane, who had a cast member, Soren Fulton, who was Fermat in the 2004 Thunderbirds film, where he flies in Thunderbird 2. That's from Steve.
Nice.
Now, Chris Moore. As my previous email prompted this game, says Chris, I thought I ought to contribute a solution. So here goes. Thunderbird 2 appeared in Thunderbirds Are Go. Sylvester McCoy voiced the character A's Thrill in the tag episode, Thunderbirds Are Go episode, Endgame. Sylvester McCoy played the 7th Doctor in Doctor Who. The 7th Doctor appears in Virgin Books' New Adventures range. Bernice Summerfield was a companion of the Doctor in these books. Bernice Summerfield kept a diary, which she annotated with the use of Post-it notes.
Nice.
How's that?
That's pretty good.
Yeah, Chris says, maybe I was wrong in my last message. Perhaps everything is really connected through Doctor Who and not Gerry Anderson. And finally, before we all go completely mad, Martin Laybourne sent us a little voice file with his 6 degrees of separation.
Hello, Richard, Jamie and Chris. It's Martin Laybourne here. I wish to submit my 6 degrees of Gerry Anderson. But before I do, I have to say this idea seems very familiar to one I sent you the end of last summer. Now, do you remember Soul 6? I suggested you called it that, as the idea was to link a famous Hollywood actor to UFO. It with 6 seriously obscure links. That's hard to say. Hence Soul 6, which, as you know, is a unit of speed of incoming UFOs. Anyway, not to hold a grudge, as great ideas have to start from somewhere. Here is my 6 degrees of Gerry Anderson for Thunderbird 2 to the Post-it note. Thunderbird 2 is the name of the heavy rescue craft that stars in the TV show Thunderbirds, created by Gerry Anderson, who, in the 1990s, created a series of TV commercials, including one for, or several for, Scotch Videotape, who were manufactured by 3M, who also invented the Post-it note. There you go. That was a bit easy, Jamie. Give us another one. And before I go, talking of links, you know I am always going on about Howard's Way. Don't moan, but I just got to the end of the whole series, and there was one link, or not link, but one coincidence that actually stood out. I didn't see it until the end, and that is there was one character, or one of the main characters, his name was called Orrin Hudson. Now, if I remember right, Orrin is a name of a character played by that rather good English actor. I can't recall his name, but I think he was in Space Precinct. And of course, Hudson was the name of the Rolls Royce, which was the car in what was it? Terrorhawks. That was it. Anyway, so there you go. I promise I won't mention Howard's Way anymore. Anyway, I'm off now to watch The Protectors, the whole lot. Goodbye.
Oh, yes. Very good, Martin.
Ground,
there we go.
Good ground.
Yes, the old Scotch tape 3M route to get the Post-it notes. And also, I don't know if you noticed there, Jamie, someone else taking credit for the item. Martin suggesting that it was from an email that he sent months ago. That's where you got the idea from.
Well, there you go. I must have nicked it without realising.
Yes. He plainly doesn't hold a grudge. But he then goes on to say that he's watching Howard's Way with the character Orrin Hudson. And wonders if there was any inspiration there. Who knows? But anyway, he's going to watch The Protectors now, so good luck with that. Do let us know what you're watching at home. Email us in podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. What's in your Blu-ray player or your DVD player, or what's on your iPod or iPad? What are you listening to or watching from the worlds of Gerry Anderson? Let us know.
Could I pose then another 6 degrees of separation?
Well, if you must.
I would love to.
Oh, go on.
This week's 6 degrees of Anderson separation.
Yes. Right.
You must connect a Stanley knife to Stingray's marina.
Not literally.
No, not literally. No, nothing like that.
No.
But a Stanley knife to Stingray's marina. Good luck, Podsteron.
Off you go. Yeah, there we are. Well done.
Okay, so while they're working on that, Richard, shall we have some Gerry Anderson news?
Oh, let's have some news.
Oh, all right then. Here comes some Gerry Anderson news. It's this week's Gerry Anderson
Newsy news.
Great.
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd harmonise a bit more there. That's all right.
I'm sorry.
Right, let's start off with something truly FAB. Thunderbirds, Terror from the Stars. Our first foray into Thunderbirds audiobooks is out this week. However...
Yes.
Yes. The download is available from Big Finish from the end of this week. So you can get it from there. Now, if you've ordered the CD, I'm afraid CD production is slightly delayed. However, everyone who has pre-ordered a CD will also get a free download link via the Gerry Anderson website. So you'll get that on the day of release. So you will still be able to hear it from the day it's out. You won't be held up. And your physical version will follow in due course. We expect maybe a week to 10 days delay, something like that.
Okay.
We just had some final kind of mastering issues and making sure the packaging was just right and all that sort of stuff. So please accept our apologies. We're working hard to stop these delays happening and all that sort of stuff. So we hope you'll accept our apology and the gift of an instant download. So that will follow for release day. To whet your appetite, would you like 5 exclusive minutes from Terror from the Stars?
Oh, what now?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Here it comes.
Scott hooked his lighted torch to his belt and lowered himself over the crumpled parapet of the well. Slowly he went down into the darkness, foot by foot, hand over hand, fending himself off the smooth, sheer wall with his feet. The Geiger clicked steadily. At 20 feet, Scott paused to ease his muscles and listened. No sound came from below. He advised Alan that he was proceeding. At 40 feet, he reported again. This time, he could hear running water, probably an underground river, but no increase in radiation levels. At 60 feet, Scott reported once more.
Slight increase of radiation, well below danger level.
Watch it, Scott. That radiation seems to be clouding the transmission. Pull out before it gets anywhere near danger level.
Okay, Father. I'm going down another 20 feet. Stand by. Base from Scott. 80 feet. About halfway to water level, I guess. I'll try the laser again. Damn! Nothing much, Dad. Dropped the laser. When I switched it on, I felt a sort of sharp tingling. It kind of startled me.
What about the
Radiation?
radiation, Scott?
Scott! Scott! Are you all right? Scott, can you read me? Scott! Alan, what's happened? Are you still receiving Scott?
No, Father. I can't make contact at all. He went off the air as though he'd switched off.
Switched off? He wouldn't do a fool thing like that. Something's wrong. He was repeating my words just as though he didn't know what he was saying. Like a drugged man. Launch Thunderbird 2, Virgil. You go with him, Gordon. Take Thunderbird 4.
Thunderbird 4, Dad? But even if there is water down there, I couldn't get to it.
Do as I say, son. There is water, and you'd better be prepared for any eventuality. Get going.
Yes, sir.
Brains, go with Virgil and Gordon. They may need your know-how.
Yes, Mr. Tracy. I have been listening to Scott's transmissions. I share your feeling that he may be in grave danger.
Can I go with them, Dad?
No, John. We can't strip international rescue of every operative. We don't know what we're up against. And if we should need Thunderbird 3, that's just you and me, son.
And me, Mr. Tracy.
Yes, Tintin, and you. But let's hope none of us will be needed. Good luck, boys.
Thanks, Father. Don't worry. We'll bring him back. The picture rotated vertically, and Virgil swung out of sight and hurtled down the hidden chute beyond the wall. Seconds later, he shot through the roof of the vast hangar hollowed out of the cliff and into the open hatch above the cabin of the huge aircraft known as Thunderbird 2. It was standing on its stilts above the conveyor belt, which carried the 6 pods containing various rescue equipment. As Virgil landed in the pilot's seat, he touched a switch. The conveyor belt moved to the left, and the huge craft settled down on its hydraulic stilts above the 4th pod, which was automatically locked into position in the main fuselage. He heard Gordon and Brains arrive in the cabin by the passenger elevator from the lounge and take their seats behind him, and advised them to prepare for launch. The massive door of the hangar slid down to reveal the long palm-flanked runway leading down to the moonlit sea. Slowly, the great craft rolled forward on the wheels of the selected pod. Up in the lighted lounge, Jeff Tracy watched as Thunderbird 2 emerged from the cliff face beneath the house, and the palms angled outwards to allow the giant wings free passage. The great craft stopped, and a section of the runway tilted to form a skyward-pointing ramp. The powerful turbines revved up to an ear-splitting whine. Jeff found himself instinctively holding his breath. Whenever any of his boys took off, he was in there with them in spirit, sharing their experience. With a blasting roar of exploding gases, Thunderbird 2 streaked up the ramp and hurtled into the night sky. As its rocket flare vanished, Jeff sighed and looked at John and Tintin. They had the same worried looks on their faces, and he knew they were thinking the same thing, hoping against hope that Thunderbird 2 arrived in time.
Oh, nice!
Yes, there you go. Thunderbirds brought back to life with a brand new cast. Very authentically, I think. I saw a couple of people tweeting about the sound effects and the music, which have been done by Toby Robinson and Joe Kramer. Great cast, done a fantastic job. Sam Clemens has done a magic job on the direction. Wonderful team, so well done, gang. Next up, we are recording Stingray and a second Thunderbirds book, and they will be coming soon. More info very, very soon. It's all very exciting. We're also working on First Action Bureau Series 2 and loads more besides, so all sorts of exciting things to come.
Mm-hmm.
Richard James, I know you like a good flash sale.
I'm so glad you finished that sentence.
Make sure you subscribed to notifications or our email to get notified of flash sales, which are happening every Friday for the foreseeable. You've just missed out, unfortunately, on the 40% off Terrorhawks vinyl from the Friday just gone. But from this coming Friday, there'll be more every week, so keep an eye out, and you could save, anything up to 70% I can see coming up in the deal. So, look forward to those. Now, when we did our Fab Live for Gerry Anderson Day, we showcased a couple of Lee Sullivan Usual Suspects prints, which are coming up. I've got the prototyped framed version right here in my office.
Oh, of course you have.
And, it's glorious. So beautiful. Beautiful prints. They just look so great, and they will be available to order very soon. Now, there shouldn't be any manufacturing delay because they are being manufactured in the UK, so there's something that hopefully we won't be delayed on once they go up for sale, but they are just gorgeous. So
Yeah,
can't wait for those. And finally, for now, I've already mentioned First Action Bureau, but if you are a Big Finish customer and you didn't want to get a physical version, the CD version of First Action Bureau, Big Finish are doing distribution for First Action Bureau Series 1, the feature edit and the extra features that you can find on the CD. So if you're more of a download person, then that's coming, I think, next week or very, very soon anyway. So you can get the full version with all the extra features, all the downloads, all the making of, all that sort of stuff from bigfinish.com.
Great.
And that, Richard James, is the end of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
You see, you were expecting me to sing it there, weren't you?
Well, I was.
Yeah,
Why are you not doing it? What?
No, I'm not this week. No, I'm taking a week off.
I feel a bit uncomfortable.
I know. Well, maybe next week. Let's see how we go.
Just to put a plea out to you, Podsteron, listening right now, tell you what, could you just do me a favour and sing that was the news, and send it in as a voice file, just in case Richard does this nonsense again. We can at least, you can do it. That's actually, Richard, you may have generated something quite cool here. A guest Podsteron, that was the news, that was the news.
Oh, that's a great idea. Do send them in. That'd be lovely.
Necessity is the mother of invention, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah,
yes,
I'll just call you Mr. Necessity, or Mrs. Necessity, I suppose. Anyway, that's that. What's next?
Yep. Well, you're listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast now. I'm going to send out a plea to all our listeners. Please subscribe us on whichever platform you subscribe to us. On whichever platform you're listening to us on. You can leave us a nice rating, which is a rating and a review, and you can also copy the link and share it with your friends so they hear us too. Now, if you're on Facebook, you can join in all the fun on our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Podsterons. For example, Rob Doyle says, wow, I just watched the pilot episode of Fireball XL5 Planet 46. What a difference a couple of years make compared to Supercar. Rob says, the model work and effects are leaps ahead. I particularly like the Robert the Robot puppet. Was this ever made as a toy or a model? He says it's a great introduction to the team and the premise of the show. There's definitely a progression from this to Stingray. All the characters seem fun, and no Zuni in this episode. Steve Zodiac and the team saved the Earth from the mysterious Planet 46, who are firing manned missiles with enough power to destroy the Earth. There's lots of action and fun, and unfortunately, lots of the usual sexism of the time, with the only female crew member, Dr. Venus. Her job seems to be to cook and be there to tell Steve how amazing he is. Well, that's fair enough. That's why Jamie's here. He says, I did laugh at the end of the episode, though, when she says, I guess I know why they call you the greatest astronaut in Space Patrol. And his reply, I think you're cute too. One question, how big is the Fireball craft? Judging by the size of the lounge, it must be massive. Anyway, I really liked it, and Rob gives it an 8 out of 10, which ain't bad.
That isn't bad.
Yeah, do you know if there was a Robot the Robot toy at any point?
I don't think there were any proper articulated ones.
Yeah.
I think there were some little single-colour plastic ones, possibly.
Right, yeah.
But no, not many, because he's such a cool robot. It's a shame there weren't more.
Absolutely. I mean, there certainly would be these days, wouldn't there? Jeff Owen says, I'm sure it's probably been covered in expanded media, but I'd love to know the answer to the ultimate question. Who would win in the ultimate race? Troy Tempest in Stingray versus Gordon Tracy in Thunderbird 4. I mean, he says, it's obviously going to be Stingray, but I'd love to hear arguments in favour of Thunderbird 4. So Jeff's already made up his mind there. I think he's probably right.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I don't actually know the technical specifications in terms of speed versus Stingray versus 4, so not off the top of my head, but I'm sure somebody out there will, so do let us know.
Of course
but
they will.
I mean, Troy couldn't lose, could he really?
No, of course not. Miles Parrish says, so I've just awoken with a start because I dreamed my apartment burnt down. A key part of this dream was making the difficult decisions about which Gerry Anderson memorabilia to save as they burned. 3 months of listening to about 3 pods a day to catch up from the beginning seems to be having an impact. He says, it did remind me I needed to renew my contents insurance, though, so thanks to Jamie, Richard and Chris. Sean Cooley says, for our anniversary, my wife bought us a region-free Blu-ray and DVD player, so I guess it's time to order those final Anderson shows that either never got an official release in the US on disc or are so out of print it's better to import anyway. There is a downside, though. That remaining list includes Torchy. Yeah, Sean, you have our condolences. And finally, this is rather nice from Mark Wickham, who says, just wanted to say what a fantastic podcast you guys produce every week. I've been a Thunderbirds fan since the 1980s. But he says, I only discovered this podcast from number 143.
What?
He's only just joined us.
What about the prior 142?
I know. I'm also a Star Wars fan and often listen to Star Wars podcasts, but I have to say that your production knocks spots off those now.
Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Well, we should add that it's not us producing it, really, is it? That's Laura editing it, making it sound professional, and Ben bringing it all together, and Chris giving some great content on the randomizer and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Yeah. So Mark says, I find it totally entertaining, and I look forward to each episode. Thanks for keeping the world of Gerry Anderson alive and making a very interesting podcast. Best wishes to you all. Roll on Monday, FAB.
Great pleasure.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for listening, Mark.
Isn't that nice? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There we are.
Is that the end for now?
I mean, that'll do, won't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably deserve a break, to be honest, after all that. So the best way for us to... right, okay, fine. So it's always nice to have a little break and listen to our interviewee of the week. Now, last week we had Toby Hadoke Part 1, so obviously what follows this week is...
Toby Hadoke Part 2.
And since you did that interview, why don't you tell us a bit about it? What can we expect?
Now, listeners will know Toby Hadoke, of course, through his association and his affiliation with the worlds of Doctor Who. But, of course, he's a great fan of all cult television, apart, as we learned last time, from Star Trek. But he does have lots of, Gerry Anderson memories, and he's very keen to share them with us, including his thoughts and comments on the greatest Gerry Anderson show of all, Space Precinct.
Of course. Well, I can't wait to hear that. Shall we hear from the world's greatest Space Precinct fan, Toby Hadoke?
Let's let him in. Does TV still mean as much now, or more, or different than it used to? Or is it still a gateway to happier times and places for you?
Well, I think it's interesting because I've been watching some of the Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat Doctor Who's recently for the podcast, and realizing how much I love some of them. I did Bad Wolf last night and remembered what a heady time that was. But I still had my eye on the general public, and was terrified that, every Sunday morning, waiting for the ratings post to come through on the forum or the reviews from the papers to see if somebody might turn on Doctor Who, even though it was sailing higher than ever. So I hope I've learned to sort of loosen up. I'm a bit more, I think, laid back about Doctor Who now, because I think it will always be part of the furniture, whether it's on telly or not. I can sort of live between seasons now. Whereas I remember cycling. I was doing a gig at the Comedy Store, and I'd started to cycle to save a few quid and to get a bit fit. But it's quite nerve-wracking cycling in a big city. And I remember cycling to the Comedy Store on the week of Dalek and going, well, I've got to be ultra careful because I don't want to get knocked off my bike and die, because I mean Doctor Who is really good and it's the Daleks are back on Saturday. So that would have been the ultimate tragedy. Not only that I'd been killed, but I'd been killed before the Daleks came back. But now it's funny, we've sort of got everything we wish for. You can watch Doctor Who whenever you want. I mean, I used to channel hop when the cricket was rained off to see if Doctor Who might get an unscheduled repeat. Now I've got them all on my shelf, and I've got them on, iPlayer and or whatever, all these things. All this stuff is to hand, and we've got more fantasy on now than ever. And yet I find myself spending half an hour going through, not hitting upon anything that I want.
Yes.
And I almost think when there were only 4 channels, and by the very nature of the lack of choice, you happened upon something you might not have automatically chosen, and then discovered something amazing. In that, being given what we want, it's like if you've got a big buffet and you only like, I only like sausages. You're only going to eat the sausages. But if somebody says, well, you're going to have this, you might think you don't like it, and then you acquire a taste for it, and then you actually discover sort of flavors and experiences you wouldn't otherwise have availed yourself of.
Yes, Dennis Potter used to speak of the ghettoization of TV, which is what he feared, whereby you'd have channels dedicated to the BBC 4s to the more sort of esoteric and high art, the BBC 3s for the youngsters, and BBC 1 for more populist entertainment and so on. And his idea was just that actually you should be putting all this stuff on one channel, so that you could be watching EastEnders, but then it would be followed by a ballet, or it'd be followed by a piece of theatre, live streamed, or whatever it might be, so that you would stumble across things without necessarily looking for them. And I think what's happened now is the ultimate ghettoization. We go to BritBox for our classic Doctor Who, we go to Netflix for our Stranger Things. So we've lost, haven't we, that communal stumbling across new things.
Yes, and television at its best is the national conversation, but that's because, if everybody the water cooler moment, everybody talks about what they watched last night. Well, 15 years ago, what was on at 8 o'clock last night was the same for everybody out of 4 things. Now it's not only what's scheduled, but also what they might have been catching up on. And, you can't even go on social, you now sometimes say, we better watch this program because somebody on Facebook's going to ruin it for me. Yes. It's almost a race to get, I think somebody said something about episode 5 of WandaVision. And so I don't know what they've said. I had to sort of look away because I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
But I've said to my partner, we need to get to episode 5 soon because otherwise I'm going to read about episode 5.
That's right.
Or whatever it is. And I think popular culture brings us together. And again, yes, it can direct the national conversation or reflect the national conversation. But if there is no common ground for that conversation to be had, I think it does fracture us a little bit. And it means we don't have the same reference points. And I do think that's a shame. And I do think that's potentially quite harmful.
But perhaps that's where fandoms come into their own. I mean, I know on the podcast and the larger Gerry Anderson community, that is a great coming together of people from all over the world, really, to share their love and respect of a particular genre and a particular man's work. Likewise with Doctor Who. The Doctor Who fandom is a huge diaspora of people who come together to celebrate the one thing. So perhaps fandom is now the only way we have of that communal coming together.
Yes, and I suppose if they are shows that are a very broad church, that is very good. So yeah, I like to think. I mean, interesting. One of the things about the podcast is that I ask friends or colleagues or people whose work I like to recommend the stories. And one of the very interesting things about it is that everyone has responded to that very differently. And what I hadn't anticipated, because I thought it would just be a Doctor Who commentary thing, is actually the guests dictate and demonstrate the different styles of appreciating Doctor Who. So a writer might go into the minutiae. That I did. Richard Marson talked about the history of fandom, and suddenly you see, you think of all Doctor Who fans as being the same because we do have a common interest, and I think sometimes common mental traits in a way, but actually from very different backgrounds with very different stories. And I think if you have a broad circle of friends. And I've got Doctor Who fan friends who have different political opinions from me and who draw different political messages from Doctor Who. I'm an old liberal lefty, so I think of Doctor Who as a peacenik who doesn't kill anybody and just uses their intelligence. And then you go, yeah, but there are those stories where he goes, they're the bad guys, we need to blow them up in their base. And you can't deny that.
Yeah.
But that's good. That's good because echo chambers are another big problem, I think, with the world. That's the bad side effect, is if you only hang around in your interest group or with people that particularly chime with you, you don't necessarily learn from mistakes by being exposed to contrary experiences and points of view. But Doctor Who has such a broad appeal that I think we're slightly luckier in that because it's such a broad church. Yeah.
And what do you feel about the future of TV? I saw a tweet the other day from someone saying that their kid doesn't watch TV like perhaps you and I did growing up. They go to their various players, their various platforms, and binge watch entire series. And if there's something they want to see, let's say on the BBC, they'll log into the iPlayer and they'll see that the latest episode isn't out yet. And rather than waiting then for the Friday night for the next episode, they'll just wait weeks and then come back and that thing. They won't make a point of watching the next episode. It'll be something on their to-do list.
My youngest son, who's 16, doesn't watch television. He watches YouTube. He watches people playing computer games. I mean, look, my granddad was worried about the Beatles and thought that was the end of civilization. So I suppose it's, and he was a very liberal and intelligent man. So I suppose it's an older person's job to be appalled by people watching people unpacking shopping.
Yes.
I mean, extraordinary. But we're a creative bunch. So I think television is changing, and also the industry is changing in that. And it's a two-sided thing, because the old gatekeepers do not wield the power that they once had, which I think will have I think as a performer and as a creative is suddenly quite freeing, because it used to be if you wanted to get a script made, you had about 3 opportunities to do so. And also with more being made it means you can do a sort of more bespoke sort of program and still get some traction and people behind it. So in a way, I wish that had actually forced the BBC to be a little bit bolder and claim their ground as a national broadcaster, to not try and therefore do some of the more generic stuff that they do, but actually go, okay, we have a role here. And instead, I don't actually think they've responded particularly well, which is a shame, because they're sort of almost doing, a slightly better platform for a lot of the stuff that people are doing anyway. Which I think is a flawed model. That everyone else is working to a commercial model, and that's fine, and that's good, and it's good to have that as an alternative. But the BBC shouldn't be a commercial entity with. I mean, it has a commercial arm and merchandise and that sort of thing. But in terms of its program making, I think it should be able to go, well, we don't need to do that lifestyle program because there's loads of those, and so maybe when ITV is doing a lifestyle program, why don't we do a two-hander play in a room, which will cost just as much? And it might not get as many viewing figures, but it serves a different purpose. And because we don't have a commercial, and some of the papers will go, oh, look, it got no viewing figures, but they can't argue that it's not fulfilling what a public service broadcaster should perhaps be doing. So I think there needs to be a bit of an about think with that, because I worry about the BBC, and I think it's very, very important. But it means that, my podcast, and I'm not trying to plug, I know I've mentioned it twice, but I'm only talking about my own experience. I decided to do what I would do if I had a Radio 4 program about Doctor Who. Now, nobody's ever going to commission a Radio 4 program about Doctor Who, maybe as a one-off, but as a regular thing. But I can make that with my microphone and my platform and put it out and then be flabbergasted. And it doesn't matter if nobody listens, because it hasn't cost me anything, because I haven't had to pay the actor, because that's me. I haven't had to pay the writer, because that's me. I haven't had to pay the editor. And then, you get 1,000 downloads and you go, oh, okay, well, someone's
listening. Yeah, that's right. Toby, when I wrote Space Precinct Unmasked, which was a memoir about my time working on Gerry Anderson's last live-action series, you very kindly bought a copy, read it, and reviewed it. So that was obviously one of his series that kind of cut through the noise in the 90s. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, well, I think it's because I was at university. I was buying SFX magazine as my weekly hit. This is prior to the internet, so again, one had to get what one could. Doctor Who wasn't around, and this seemed to be, it had some good actors in it, like Jerome Willis, who'd been in Doctor Who and the Green Death, and he'd also been in a play with my brother, who's not an actor but had done a child thing at the Ludlow Festival, where I grew up. And I was always thrilled because in his program notes, Edward Woodward was Richard III, Jerome Willis was Clarence, and it said the television credits include blah 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 and Doctor Who and the Green Death, in which he played the lead villain. So he was obviously very proud of the Green Death. And then I did a bit at the Ludlow Festival. They did a Shakespeare play there every year, and I did a bit of spear carrying. Well, this was As You Like It, so it was apple carrying, and there was an actor in it, brilliant actor in it, called Ken Drury. And the word was, oh, Ken's just walked out on a show and Ken's a brilliant actor because he was playing a guy in a mask. Now, what I didn't realize was he was actually probably playing different guys in a different mask every week and didn't want to deal with it. So I was sort of aware that there was going to be this big sci-fi thing filmed here that this actor I really liked had only done a little stint on. So it was in the air, do you know what I mean? And then it came, and me and my friend John had a thing about Ted Shackelford, because it's such a good American name. And we weren't taking it, but if ever we did a sort of comedy sketch or something that required an all-American character, we called him Ted Shackelford as a sort of fun joke. So it just seemed to be there were loads of things about it that I sort of appealed.
Yeah.
And then, of course, watching it, you could tell that they were learning as they went along, that there was interesting things happening. I was fascinated by the fact that some of the actors were obviously dubbed, which seemed to me a sort of throwback to how things were done 30 years ago. So it was this really odd melange of how to do things. But I still enjoyed it, whilst sort of being aware that clearly there were different element, it was pulling in different directions.
Really was. Yeah, so absolutely.
So it was as much watching it for what it was as a program as getting involved in the episodes. But I thought it was, and I think UK TV has missed a trick. American TV has so many of our actors going over there
because they like our performers. Seems to me odd that we've very rarely, they tried it with a thing called Nice Guy Eddie a few years ago, had an American show over here using cheaper, really good English actors to do a sort of American style series using British locations, English locations, UK locations, and personnel. And I still think there's probably an effective series to be made that way. And I thought Space Precinct was a good stab at doing that. You get in 2 American leads, fill the rest with British personnel, and make a show that has a sort of international flavour. But obviously,
that was the hope. Yeah.
And I loved your book, and what I love about that is, in fact, I read your book, and you were there on the internet, and we got in touch, and we've sort of kept in touch and back and forth without actually having met.
Yes, that's right. I know. Ships that pass in the night. A couple of things there. Yeah, Ken Drury was up to play Sergeant Fredo, who was a regular Tarn, the desk sergeant, who went on to play by David Coulter. Yeah. So yes, and Ken tried the mask on. I think we had a day where we all descended on Pinewood to try the masks on for the first time, and he just couldn't cope with the claustrophobia. He had something of a panic attack and had to walk out, you're right, before even filming a single scene.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Because he's in one episode, isn't he? Is it as a sort of guest monster of the week? So he
came back. He came back as himself. He was the captain of a space freighter in an episode directed by John Glenn called The Snake, which is a bit of a fan favourite. So he did all right out of it. And as you say, a prolific actor. I mean, he crops up all over the place. So I dare say he probably has no memory of his 36 hours as part of the regular cast of Space Precinct. Who knows? And also, a step change again. We spoke earlier about, from Supermarination to the worlds of Terrorhawks with the different sort of design of puppetry. And now we have in Space Precinct marrying, perhaps not always successfully, the live action that Gerry Anderson had dipped his toe in with Space 1999 very successfully in UFO with animatronics. Did that work for you? The creatures, did they feel, apart from the dubbing, as you've mentioned, which is a very strange thing to have done, did that work for you?
I think it did, and I thought it was a neat trick to go for the sort of Hill Street bluesy type of precinct with those recognizable types, but alienize them. I think that's a really good in for an audience that might be reluctant to approach a genre show to go, okay, but other than this, the visual language is stuff I'm aware of, and I think that's a very clever way of doing things. Do something recognizable that hauls the audience in, and I think I also had an eye on it of going, well, if Doctor Who came back, could it work and could it be successful?
Yeah,
I mean, don't say this in a crowded room, but I prefer models to CGI even now. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because of what I used to do growing up. And I remember when CGI was new and it was sort of, amazing, you could do anything. But seeing a spaceship model blow up with the film slightly slowed down and then speed up, it just seems more solid and more real. And perhaps it's just the language that speaks to me better. But yeah, I certainly had an eye on going, okay, well, if Anderson can do it, why can't the BBC be doing this with Doctor Who, which has a different sensibility? And I have no problem with Space Precinct having different aims and ambitions and storytelling styles to Doctor Who. I didn't want it to be Doctor Who. It was its own thing, and that's great. I watched the one with Ray Winston in it the other day. He's dubbed, isn't he?
I know. Yes, I think he has 2 or 3 lines. I don't think his character even has a name, and he's dubbed. The ignominy. I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it? But he was on very hard times then. He related. There's Will Barton, an actor you might also know.
I lived opposite Will when I lived in London.
Right. Related a story. He spoke to Ray Winston during the filming of 2 Against the Rock, that episode, and Ray Winston was saying, "I can't get work for love nor money. I'm cabbing to make ends meet."
What a mad. So that was a little bit before Nil by Mouth, where he sort of went up against. It's an unforgiving profession.
So where can our listeners find you online, and tell us a bit more about the podcast and other podcasts you have going, and websites and Twitter handles and all sorts of stuff? Where can people find you?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Toby Hadoke, TobyHadoke. I tend to just do Doctor Who trivia or jokes now. I worry about the cesspool of social media.
Yeah.
But the podcasts, which started in lockdown as to give me something to do, although I've been lucky, I've been doing audiobooks and radio plays and all sorts of other things as well. So I've been very lucky. But I thought, keep the machine oiled. are called Toby Hadoke's Time Travels, and I couldn't decide what to do. I wanted to do this Radio 4 thing, which are sort of they're whimsical essays called Indefinable Magic about some obscure arcane thing to do with Doctor Who. Sometimes they're childhood nostalgia. Sometimes it's talking about the history of carrots in Doctor Who, but hopefully with jokes and blah, 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 blah. But they took quite a lot of work. So I thought, well, I need to spin that out with something else. So then I thought I'd do something factual, because the facts are all out there. You just have to collate them. And there's no audio history of Doctor Who. So I did this thing called Too Much Information, where basically I take an episode of Doctor Who and I tell you everything about it, when it was done, where it was done, what was done, and biographies of who was in it. And they take even longer. So then I thought, but they've been very, very popular. Annoyingly, the one that's had the most attention is the one that takes, oh my goodness. And then, so I thought, I'll do one that's quick. And I'd do these episode commentaries, which are called Happy Times and Places. And the wheeze there is, because there's lots of episode commentaries out there, I've got a friend to nominate a story and to choose their favorite things about each episode. And so I have to watch with a positive eye. So, because I listen to a few Doctor Who podcasts of people just hating Doctor Who. And I thought, well, I'm going to try and see, even so I struggled, but I tried my hardest with Time Lash episode 2. Always with an eye of going, I'm going to see, even as the Doctor saying to the bad guy, who'd want to kiss you? You're ugly. You should jump into a tinsel box because nobody's want to kiss you, you terrible thing. This is Doctor Who basically body shaming somebody into oblivion. But I try. And I throw in facts, and I hopefully keep it upbeat. And they're all on all your usual podcast outlets, and the Happy Times and Places I also do as a video that I stick on YouTube.
Fantastic.
If you see what length my moustache is at any particular moment.
Very good. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to join us, Toby, and good luck with all your endeavours, and come back and see us soon.
Well, thanks for having me.
Oh, well, what a lovely chat.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much to the lovely Toby Hadoke, and thanks for taking time. I mean, he really does have a very busy schedule. You think you're busy?
Yeah,
Jerry?
I'm not Hadoke busy.
You're really, really hard on the Hadoke scale. He must be, about 8 or 9? Now, he's off the scale, of course. He's busy producing not 1, not 2, but 3 podcasts.
3?
Under the umbrella title of Toby Hadoke's Time Travels, one of which is Happy Times and Places, where he sits down in front of a Doctor Who episode, which has been nominated by a friend of his,
nice.
And gives his thoughts and ruminations. So, of course, he asked me, didn't he?
He ran out of friends, did he?
Oh, I see. So which story, Jamie, do you think I chose?
Mordred Undead.
No, it wasn't Mordred Undead. I think that had gone already.
What?
Yeah, it is a 5th Doctor story. It would have been Mordred Undead, but instead it was...
Enlightenment?
That's a good one too. No. Shall I give you a clue?
Terminus?
Drop the sonic device, Doctor.
Visitation?
Of course.
Lovely.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, so do give that a listen. I think in the meantime he's got many more eminent guests to feature, and I'll be along at some point.
I'll see you in the future on that podcast. Great.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's lovely. Well, we're going a bit Antipodean next week. Would you believe it?
Are we?
Yes.
Are they letting us in at last?
No, unfortunately, it's still remote.
Oh, right.
So, but next week we're speaking to filmmaker and YouTuber Michael Shanks. Now, not necessarily a name that a lot of you would know, but I highly recommend that anyone who's interested in practical effects and combining practical with digital should go onto YouTube and search for Michael Shanks Rebooted. It's a lovely little homage to everything practical and how it has a place or not potentially in today's world. It's a great short film, and that was what brought it to our attention via producer of the podcast, Ben Page. I had a lovely chat with Michael, and we talk about all sorts of stuff about how he came to get into Thunderbirds and other shows in the first place. Strangely, a very familiar tale of grandparents introducing it, or grandparents allowing him to watch it. It's the same with David Tremont, I think, and the same with another upcoming interviewee. Really interesting stuff. But nice guy, and our first Antipodean guest ever.
Really?
Is it?
Is that right? That can't be right.
Well, I suppose David Tremont technically is Australian, but he's now in New Zealand. But our first current Australia resident, I think.
Right. Well,
yeah, so that's quite exciting.
It took us that long. Yeah,
it did. So Michael Shanks Part 1 next week, and many more to come. Anything else you want to do or say before we hand over to Chris, who has finally managed to get himself dressed?
Oh, thank goodness for that. Well, I've got some tweets. Do you want them now or do you want them after the randomiser?
Yeah, pop your tweets in and then Chris can finish doing his hair before he comes over to the randomiser.
Okay, I'll give him plenty of time. Alan J. Porter, now this is carrying on the theme, over on Twitter said, I thought the Gerry Anderson podcast crew would appreciate this, and he posted a picture saying, my 4- and 6-year-old granddaughters watching Thunderbirds for the first time.
I love it.
It makes us feel warm and fuzzy, doesn't it? That sort of thing. That's great. As Jamie mentioned, Thunderbird's Adventure Terror from the Stars is coming. And this week, the Gerry Anderson TV Twitter account posted a bit of a teaser. Roll on for the full release, of course. And Kelly Haycock says, earphone in, listening carefully in anticipation of my already ordered copy. CJ says, that sounds amazing. It even has the classic Thunderbirds cliffhanger. Fox Radjan says, no, what happened next? It sounds amazing. The background music gets spot on too. And I like Wayne Forrester's narration. I always wanted an official crossover with Captain Scarlet. Fran Faze says, love it. Great work with the incidental music from the episodes. Thunderbirds IR fans tweeted, sounds fantastic. Can't wait. And Rachel Wild said simply, wow.
We'll happily take all of those positive comments and more. So we hope you enjoyed the extra little sample in this podcast too. More to come.
Yeah, indeed. Great. And there we are. So don't forget, you can tweet us by hashtagging us Gerry Anderson Podcast or tagging me, Richard N. James, him, I'm Jamie Anderson, and him over there, he's finally put the hairdryer down, Chris Dalek.
Perfect. Well, Chris Dalek, let's welcome you over so you can do some randomiser stuff. Chris has got a randomiser machine which he presses the button of and it randomly selects an episode of Gerry Anderson stuff. Chris watches it and gives us his witty and incisive comments and thoughts. I, for one, am looking forward to this week. Who knows what it'll be? Let's find out.
Now.
Before we get started, this is the interrogation room, not the debriefing center.
Sorry, Colonel, is there something wrong?
You're damn well what it is, this room.
Oh, don't worry, just brought you in here for a little peace and quiet. You know, we don't want any rockets falling on top of us or anything.
That's right. You'll be right back to zero again. Where do we go from here?
Well, that's up to you, really. Now, you said you had an urgent message for me.
What I'm going to tell you is bizarre, weird.
What, that you want to press the button on the randomizer today?
All right, I know how it sounds. You think of anything better?
No, I literally cannot think of anything better. So please, Colonel Glenn Ross, today it's all up to you.
Should be interesting. This is the part we have to make look good.
Absolutely, it's the most important part of the whole thing, after all.
Yeah, it's got to be the right person, though. Otherwise, it makes no difference.
Precisely. So, there's the printout. Perhaps you could tell us what we're watching today.
The writing is reversed.
Huh? Let me take a look. No, seems fine to me.
Satisfied?
Yes, well, I am. I think most people will be.
Now, what do you see?
Well, it's Stingray, and the episode is
The Invaders in color.
What the hell was that?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you about him someday.
Okay, well then, here's Stingray.
The hell more do you want?
Stingray! Stingray! Stingray!
So, welcome back to Stingray on the Randomiser, and an episode that I find very interesting to talk about because I find there's lots I really enjoy with this episode, and some things that I think don't work. But we open with one of the things that really does work: this gorgeous model shot of Wasp Weather Station 4, where this lonely chap is keeping an eye on the weather, and well, you don't need to be a trained weather person to know. You can probably hear by the sound effects and the music that there's a bit of a storm going on out there, and it does look very nice.
Marineville, this is Weather Station 4. Routine check call. Nothing to report. We had a heck of a storm, but it's all quiet now.
Number 4, this is Marineville. Roger. Changing frequency. We'll be back on the air 0800 hours for next check. Good night.
Good night, Marineville.
And this guest character playing whatever the tower operative's name is, I'm sure we'll find out at some point. He looks very for Stingray, he looks quite convincingly human, except his mouth is very wide.
That finishes that. I guess I'll turn in. Hey, what's that?
Somebody creeping up a ladder. And this is a live action shot. We're seeing someone's put on gold tights and black flippers, but they've also put on gold rubber gloves. And we were talking about this, was it last week with Fireball? People putting on gloves to make their flesh look puppet skin coloured. whoever's posing for these live action shots has had to put gold gloves on to make his skin look gold. This is very suspenseful. Especially because we don't actually see
Who are you?
the face of the person coming up the tower.
Say, what are you gonna do?
We just hear him advancing towards this poor guy, and then he gets thrown out the window, which is so brutal for this show. I don't know if he was thrown. It kind of looks like he jumped before the alien could shoot him, and we're now seeing the alien in all his glory, blowing up everything because he's such a naughty man. Oh yes, the tower operative's name is Carter. He's hauling himself out the water.
That's just a sample of what you'll get, Carter, if you don't do what we say.
What is it? What do you want me to do?
First, our engineers plan a few changes to this place. And then, when they've finished, you'll call for Stingray.
He's one of the least heroic Carters of the Anderson universe.
What's it all about?
Just do as you're told. You'll soon find out.
Oh, Puppet's being threatened by a live-action hand.
Carter didn't say what it was all about, Troy, but you'd better take a look. It's Weather Station 4.
Okay, Atlanta, will do.
I'll be waiting for your report.
Okay, we'll be there before you can say PWOR.
Oh, and they are. Thanks to the miracle of jump cuts, they are there.
Just look at this place. What happened?
Well, it's a strange story, Captain.
Okay, we're waiting. Let's hear it.
I'm sorry, Captain, but I'm afraid you walked into a trap.
And this is another very cool thing. In one night,
What's going on?
the aliens that took the tower have repurposed it so that it can survive a trip, not only underwater but beneath the seabed.
Shooting me won't do any good, Captain. Once the machinery is set in motion, nothing can stop it.
It's a very nice image. Of course, it means they've left Stingray all alone. Some nice, very nice effects work of the
Pulled down like we were in an elevator.
the tower being dragged beneath the surface. They've even mounted it to a platform. They're very enterprising fellows, these aliens. In some ways, as we'll later discover, they are not 100% competent in other respects. Oh no, wait, Stingray won't be unmanned. I believe Oink might be on board. I think this is the last episode that Oink is in, and he's in it very briefly.
We must be going down into the center of the Earth.
Again, we seem to spend a lot of our time in the center of the Earth, but yeah, he's right. I suppose because he's done it so often before, it's a familiar experience to him, being pulled down beneath an entry hatch in the seabed. And it's a lovely model of the weather station, actually. We're getting some nice close-ups of it as it's dragged down this crater. I believe it appeared in one or two other episodes later on.
Stopped.
And here they are. The evil aliens who've planned all this. Both of them. They have a very nice throne room.
Welcome to our city, Captain. Deep in the bowels of the earth, we have been expecting you.
Another city within the bowels of the earth. There's a lot of them in Stingray.
Stingray from Tower?
Still no answer, Atlanta.
No. You'd better get the commander. I'll carry on calling.
Oh, suddenly Stingray's hatch is open.
From Tower?
It wasn't before. I think that's stock footage. Yeah, there he is.
Are you receiving me?
There's the little grey goblin.
Stingray?
Oink, all alone on Stingray. Which doesn't seem like a good idea.
What happened, Atlanta?
Stingray was on patrol, sir, when we had this emergency call from Weather Station 4.
Then contact the weather station. Well, I have, sir. We can't reach them either.
Okay, so your scheme for getting us here worked. What now?
There is no need to take that attitude, Captain Tempest. We would like to feel that you are our friends.
Friends? Gee, what do you do to your enemies?
We hope that you will never fall into that category, landman.
But you will, if you continue your warlike ways.
This is a very, very nice looking throne room. I also noticed there's a table there. with what looks like a copy of Marina's dress and some necklaces. I don't know what that's about.
Speak when we question you, Captain.
I can't imagine that belongs to either of these gentlemen.
What happens after that? If we are satisfied, you are free to go. Please do not blame Carter for your predicament. We regret it. But we had to force him to help us.
We threw him through a window. It's our way of establishing trust and cooperation.
Do you believe their story, Troy? I mean about capturing us to see if we're planning to invade them. Oh, it's pretty incredible to me. But let's see what happens.
It has worked perfectly so far.
Yes, they will suspect nothing. We will question Troy Tempest while he sits in this chair. The brain-reading chair.
Oh yes, that's what that chair is. I'd forgotten. Please explain to me in detail what it does.
From him will enable us to capture Marineville, the first step in our conquest of the Earth. Then the whole of the Terranian race will be stamped out.
Yep, it's a rather a sort of underpants gnomes style plan in that they've leaped from stage 1 to stage 3 rather quickly. Take over Marineville, and then we'll just sort of conquer the Earth somewhere after that.
The Deuteranians had no thought of invading us.
Of course I stick by it. It's the truth.
Very well. Now about Marineville. Is there a sea entrance?
That's secret information. I can't answer.
This is a lovely idea that Troy is involuntarily giving up Marineville's secrets.
If you don't wish to answer, you don't have to.
In the case
He sat in the chair.
being attacked, what happens? Or is that secret too?
Every time they ask him a question,
you can save yourself.
The answer is being flashed up on a great big screen behind him. It does make him look a bit dopey. Especially as there's these long periods of silence between him answering and them asking the next question. But they're getting all the info they need to see the ocean door and Marineville's battle stations mode.
That's all right, Captain Tempest. You have been most cooperative. You've told us all we want to know.
Mwahaha. Oh no, we're supposed to be nice people.
To Stingray.
Meanwhile, Oinks fired off several dozen Sting missiles at nothing in particular.
You didn't answer any of the questions, did you, Troy? Of course I didn't. They sure seemed to give up pretty easy, considering all the trouble they went to in the first place.
You guys can think what you like of me. I let you down badly, I know that, but I tell you one thing. I don't trust them.
Yeah.
Being thrown through a window will do that to you.
But the question is, what?
We are ready. Our subterranean travel cylinder is standing by.
Good.
Oh.
The brain-reading machine worked perfectly.
Brain-reading machines, subterranean travel cylinders, these guys have got everything.
And we have the element of surprise on our side. They will never expect an invasion from beneath the ground.
Indeed not. Alert our men.
What men, sir?
Marineville!
There's just you and me. I wonder if they actually got Weather Station 4 back.
I just don't believe it.
Don't worry, I didn't tell them anything.
That goes without saying, Captain.
Because now obviously the Wasps know that there is a tunnel directly to the enemy base beneath Weather Station 4. Did they... I know they let everybody go, including Carter. Did they destroy it afterwards? I don't know.
Just doesn't add up. But I've got a hunch it means trouble.
Well, I'm taking no chances. Atlanta?
Sir?
Sound launch stations.
It's something I actually like about this episode, despite the fact that I'm sure it does work against it in the long run, is these aliens have hatched really grand plans that they are just so...
Stingray launch, stage 1.
Right. Sound battle stations.
Yes.
Dazzling in their audacity and the sheer... Well, doing that overnight work on Weather Station 4 to turn it into a... Not only to take it beneath the surface, but to take it beneath the ocean bed is just... They're brilliant. With their subterranean travel cylinders. I find them a lot of fun. They are completely insane, but I find them a great deal of fun.
Battle stations completed, sir.
Good. Whatever the danger, we're ready for it. Now all we do is wait.
I just noticed that there's a food dispenser machine in Marineville, and one of the buttons is marked fruit. It doesn't give you a choice of fruit, it will just present you with anything.
It's been nearly 4 hours, Troy.
It's another reason I hope we can get this this show in HD soon. I want to see what...
We're going to see some action.
What else they can eat in Marineville.
We can't stay at battle stations forever. Yeah. Commander Shore's got a tough decision on his hands.
There's also maybe a bit of an overreaction on Shore's part. It's not like two aliens being a bit suspicious
Do we carry on waiting?
hasn't cropped up before, and they haven't quite gone to this level of battle stations before, to the extent that they're prepared to just lock themselves underground indefinitely.
This is Commander Shore.
But, of course, being underground...
All personnel are to remain in their quarters for a further period of 4 hours.
Shore didn't count on them having a subterranean travel cylinder. And it's there. They've arrived in Marineville.
We are in Marineville.
Our first objective, the control tower.
This is a very nice shot as well. Making use of the stock footage of Marineville underground. And the aliens have come up in just the right spot to see the tower from that vantage point. And there we go. Get a nice back projection shot of that stock footage as they...
It is exactly as the brain reader showed us.
As they waddle out and look at it. So the Stingray crew are at sea. They're on standby. The tower, everyone's waiting. Control tower. Unauthorized personnel, keep out. Oh, we'd better not go in. It's only WASP personnel and small children allowed in there.
We'll remain at battle stations for another half hour. We can't keep this up. Just have to rely on extra patrols.
Yeah, they'll be running out of groceries in the Marineville supermarket, which we know is a thing.
Stay right where you are.
Ah, that's it. They're in the control tower.
We shall kill you.
Okay, now. Walk slowly to that wall.
But Atlanta
Keep away from the control.
has flicked the Talk to Stingray lever so the Stingray crew can hear what's going on.
All of you.
Troy, that voice on the radio. Yeah, it's one of the characters that captured us. They must be in the control room, and someone's flicked the switch.
So these aliens have now got Shore, Atlanta, and Fisher.
No harm will come to you if you obey my orders.
You don't stand a chance of getting away with this.
Don't we, Commander? We know exactly how Marineville works. Troy Tempest told us everything.
Okay, phones. Now we know the score. Let's get back to Marineville. Right, Troy.
Nobody's going to question the fact that Troy told them. Even he isn't like, what? Oh.
Don't look so shocked, Commander. You see, we used a brain-reading machine. Captain Tempest did not betray you intentionally.
So that's what they were up to.
This is a nice shot as well of Troy and phones from above as the old heroic Stingray theme plays.
We are in luck. All our craft are at sea.
Right. Keep the ocean door closed.
Did you hear that, Troy? Quiet. We've got to find out what they're up to.
You seem very confident of your success.
And why shouldn't we? Our invasion is planned to the last detail.
Even the best laid plans go wrong.
You and the Commander are the only ones who know we are in the control tower.
I'm here too. Shut up, Lieutenant.
Invade.
They are already on the move.
Ah yes, the non-existent backup troops, which again is something that I have to call into question. We haven't seen any.
Our invading force is approaching.
We'll never see any. We don't see any indication that anything is approaching Marineville. But yeah, there's supposedly a whole invasion force. Just at any moment they're going to turn up.
Open ocean door.
When they do, oh. But no sign of them. And Troy and phones can't open the ocean door.
It's not opening. Oh, they must have jammed the remote control mechanism.
And newly shot footage of the ocean door. I think it's the first time since the pilot they would have shot any new footage of the ocean door as
missiles. But the explosions could block the tunnel, Troy. Yeah, but we'll have to take our chance.
Troy and phones prepare to blow up the entrance to the tunnel. I like the way as well this episode actually uses Marineville's established sort of settings and fixtures to create its story.
Fire one.
And even though it's only the ocean door, you know, you do feel a little bit of sort of, oh, they blew up a regular part of the show.
Not yet, we haven't.
We've still got to stop that fearsome invasion force.
The alarm! Look, Something's entering the tunnel.
And that something is Stingray.
Yay.
Okay, the little game's over, gentlemen. Your invading force won't get far now.
No.
It takes exactly 3 minutes for Troy to get from the pen to the control tower. You may as well surrender.
Commander, we have 80,000 men, and you have Troy Tempest.
Easily. Now move quickly to the standby dome. And no tricks.
Although, knowing Stingray aliens as we do, their invading force is probably 3 people maximum, and maybe a couple more guns. It's also interesting as well, I'm sure Shaw keeps a gun in his hover chair. He might have been able to...
Open number 1 hatch phones. Bring down injector tubes and fast.
To pull that out.
To the control tower. Number 1 hatch and injector tubes.
But the aliens have more important matters on their mind as they move to the standby lounge. No Troy phone's leaving Stingray. That's a rare shot.
Commander, not a word or you'll all die.
Yeah, they've taken Shaw, Atlanta, and Fisher.
Our only chance of escape, Commander.
For some reason, Fisher, who has said nothing since the aliens arrived,
Coming.
is bound and gagged. Because, I guess they thought Fisher was a threat to their plans?
Drop those guns, gentlemen. If we die, your people will go with us.
You're fighting a losing game.
We'll decide that, Troy Tempest. Now get out of those chairs. Both of you, at once. They mean business, Troy.
They've tied up Fisher in some sort of strange bondage ritual. I don't know what that's about.
Thinking of doing anything foolish. Remember, when we get into Stingray, your traitress of the sea, Marina, will be with us. Or had you thought it had escaped our notice that she was still on board?
That's quite a point.
And we'll have Oink as well, but nobody cares.
Till the next time.
Troy, what are you doing?
This is Troy calling Stingray.
They're going to make away with Stingray.
Once if you do. Now listen, there's not much time. Do exactly as I say.
The aliens are coming down to Stingray on the injector seats. And Marina is submerging Stingray. So that when the tubes enter the pen... Again, this is more clever use of the established Marineville setup. Now the Stingray pen. Yep, here they go.
Stingray! It's gone! Ah!
So we drop the puppets into the water. I think one of their heads just did a complete 180 there.
Well, by the sound of it, Marina made it okay. Guess that's the end of their invasion.
As I said earlier, even the best laid plans can go wrong.
Yep, there we go. That's our fearsome enemies reduced to lolling around in the water shrieking. Because, you know, if there's one thing underwater aliens wouldn't be able to do is swim. And because their leaders got a bit wet, that knocks the whole invasion thing on the head. Needless to say, their invasion force, their fearsome invasion force, which was just almost there, I don't know, they must have turned back. No idea what happened there. Everybody just assumes that's it. All done. And that was The Invaders. And I think you can tell by the way I've been talking about it that I actually find this one great fun. I wouldn't say that it's one of the best episodes because there are quite a few plot holes in the script, like specifically where on earth this massive invasion force goes at the end. But it is endearingly loopy. There's some Dennis Spooner, right? There's some fun ideas at work here. I like that the Marineville that they actually get into Marineville, the invaders. At times they feel 1 or 2 steps ahead of our regulars, which is nice and fun. Unfortunately, they hatch all these loopy plans and it's all for nothing because basically their own uselessness works against them in the end. So it's, as a Stingray episode, it's nothing spectacular. It's not one of the greats. I think this is a bit of a guilty pleasure. I enjoy it for the fact that it is so lovably daft and silly.
Stingray! Stingray!
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry. I had to.
No, it's fine. I thought you were going to go into Marina instead.
I could.
Aquamarina.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's lovely. All syrupy and croony. Very much like Stingray in general, actually, I'd say.
Yeah, I suppose so. No, it's certainly it's the comfort food, isn't it, of the Gerry Anderson universe, I always think.
It's the beans on toast with some cheddar cheese on top. So, elevated slightly from salad cream.
Oh, yeah. On your beans. Try it before you knock it.
You're a monster. I don't even know you. Anyway, thank you very much, Chris, for your Randomiser episode. If you, Podsteron, have any views on salad cream and beans, then please do email us, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, and we may read out your thoughts next week, unless, of course, you're in favour of them, in which case I shall veto that.
Oh, I see.
It's very one-sided, this podcast, isn't it? Chris will be back next week with more Randomiser. We'll be back next week with more podcast stuff. Richard, is there anything else to wrap up? Oh, hang on. You had some comments from the world of YouTube, didn't you?
Oh, no. Did I? No, I don't think I did. Oh, you panicked me now. No, I'll save those for next week.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I felt like things were coming to a close anyway, so let's close things out.
So, yes, exactly.
No, that's great. Podsteron, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to be in your ears again this week with all things Anderson.
It is nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially when they've cleaned them.
Yes, do keep them clean. Thank you very much. Although, don't use the cotton buds. They're not meant for going into the ear, believe it or not. Even though they seem perfectly designed for that. No, right, that's the end of Pod 154. We're not orologists, or is that the right term?
Well, what is that, clock specialist? What is it?
No, not horology. Anyway, look, we're just a couple of blokes chatting nonsense on the podcast, so we'll leave you to your own oral hygiene, and we will be back next week for Pod 155.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
I had a maths teacher when I was at school.
Yeah.
I think his name was Roger Edwards. Had a great moustache. And
did he?
He was very firm about differentiating between oral and aural.
Yes, well, I can imagine so.
Because we used to have aural, as in listening, maths tests.
Ah, but not oral maths tests.
No, because then we'd be speaking the solution.
Speaking sums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Any thoughts on aural versus oral?
I mean, if you'd warned me, I might have got a few together.
Well, that's the point of this last post-credits bit, is I surprise you.
Yes, oral. I've never really considered it in much depth, no.
Okay, well, that's fine. Well, now
I'm sorry
you have.
to disappoint you.
No, that's all right. It's nothing that I'm not used to be honest.
I mean, the one thing that surprises us all is that you actually had maths lessons.
Well, thank you. I was terrible at maths.
Me too.
I hated it.
Still am.
Really, I struggled. In fact, I helped a chap I'm working with on a project to help his daughter with her, I think, quadratic equations homework, which bizarrely I could remember from school, but in doing so, it just filled me with sort of slightly hot, tense rage.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I won't be doing that again.
Imagine.
Anyway, I guess you're probably off to do some
quadratic equations now, aren't you?
Yeah, okay.
I'll at least go and Google it and see what they are. Yeah.
Good luck with that, and I'll give you one to work out next week.
Okay, thanks for that.
All right, good luck.
Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.